rushed out of the room, gathering.
Bro, this is the most bitch-made thing I've ever seen. The situation is more dire. Vladimir Putin literally came to the United States of America, took his cock out, and said, suck it. And Trump gave him a blowjob, only to turn around and get nothing out of this equation at all beyond glazing Putin. What the fuck? I mean, so far, that's what it looks like to me. Okay, we gotta watch Fox. We gotta see the spin.
What exactly happened here? So I think the broad reaction.
Putin come out and address.
Trump said he could go to Moscow,
first.
brother. What are you talking about?
U.S. soil here, and that left the media scrambling to get their headsets in. Usually, it is the the leader of the country, the host country of a summit, that speaks first and addresses the room in their language. But Putin started right off in Russian, and we all had to get our headsets on and listen to him rattle off this diatribe about the history of the U.S.-Russia relationship, making some allusions to something that we didn't get many details on. But
you hear
also,
that?
Without knowing the full background of it, there was something that he said that was a little bit alarming, I thought, that seems like some of the things that he has done in the past, setting up false flags and that kind of thing, saying that we hope that Ukraine doesn't do anything to sabotage the progress that we made today, knowing full well that Ukraine has agreed to a ceasefire unconditionally for the last several months, and it has been Russia that has not agreed to a ceasefire. That was President Trump's main objective today. And when we did hear from the president, he said, we didn't get there, but we think that we can. So a lot of questions remaining for the president, Trump, not just about what was discussed in that room and what might be happening now, but also how that all happened back there. It was just very unusual, atypical, and I think we're all awaiting, the readout, because the way that it felt in the room was not good. It did not seem like things went well, and it seemed like Putin came in and steamrolled, got right into what he wanted to say, and got his photo next to the president and then left. Of course, that is only the piece of the picture that we have right now, and certainly President Trump, who is the host and who is the president, would not want to, I think, enable something that would make him look weak. But there were some things that Putin said that are always cause for concern. When he references things like root causes,
I know.
It's always a reference back to his ultimate goal of taking all of Ukraine. And so we'll see, though, of course. We got more out of Putin than we did from President Trump. And I expect that we'll get the full picture when he talks to Sean Hannity. Very, very grateful that he is going to be giving the full readout here soon.
Jackie, you're about to get a flow of information, so I'm going to let you gather that. So I appreciate it. Meanwhile, former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo joins us now. Last time they met, he was there. Mr. Secretary, your thoughts about how little we know at this point?
Only this, Brian. Putin gets the joke, right? He is trying diligently to snuggle up to President Trump. He knows that President Trump holds all the cards that can bring his nation to near ruin. That, by the way, that read of World War II, I've heard from.
Dog, he glazed Trump
so many times is laughable.
and attacked Biden. Who gives a fuck? Trump is giving him everything.
Good actors in the aftermath of World War II, to say the least. The Soviet Union destroyed so much and did so little for its own people. He also defended the Christian church. I mean, it's really quite laughable as well. But he hit all the notes he thought would matter. I think that is a misread in some ways. President Trump, while he said we have a great relationship, has been incredibly tough with respect to Russia, far more capable of deterring Vladimir Putin than Joe Biden or Barack Obama.
America's fall as the international superpower, the hegemonic superpower, is not even going to be like a graceful exit.
I just want to bring it to the one point. You know that you had a long
it's just happening at an alarming rate that I previously could not have fathomed, could not have imagined.
Said this of significance.
And it's like Trump is just truly accelerating it. He really is the great nation builder for China, and I guess for Russia as well.
Just a very few that are left. Some are not that significant. One is probably the most significant. But we have a very good chance of getting there. We didn't get there, but we have a very good chance of getting there.
So, you know President Trump. You know his body language. What are your thoughts about what he means?
I think there's still significant sticking points along the way. They may have identified interests that they can work their way through, perhaps on economic matters and the like, but it sounds to me like sort of the central issue, the thing that we've all been talking about for the days leading up to this, Vladimir Putin's willingness to conduct a ceasefire with no conditions so that they can get to the table and discuss a formal resolution of the conflict. It doesn't sound like Putin showed up today ready to concede that core point.
Yeah, we didn't get there, is what he said, but we have productive meetings. I'm going to call NATO. I'm going to call the EU, European leaders. I'm going to call Zelensky. So he does have something to say, right? And soon we're going to get that, what happened and what didn't happen.
Oh, yeah, he has something
and then
to
we're going to
say.
have evaluation. It's just very different not to get that from the press conference.
Yeah, in a matter
Bro,
of
they're
hours,
having
we'll
such a
have
hard time
figured out
spinning this.
precisely where
They can't even spin it because it was so devoid of nothing. And it's like one of the worst possible outcomes, because then all you've done at that point is just like show good favor to Vladimir Putin. And that's it. And you got nothing in return for it other than Vladimir Putin saying Biden was responsible, and also I would have never invaded Ukraine if Trump was still president. That's it. That's what Trump got in exchange for bringing Vladimir Putin to America under the auspices of like a ceasefire negotiation that literally, by his own admission, did not come to a reasonable conclusion at all.
Should be another meeting.
Look, I think anybody's confused about how this went down is still wondering what happened at the end of that final Sopranos episode. This is exactly what President Trump said was going to happen. He said it's not his deal to make. Putin is killing innocent people in a sovereign nation. He invaded that nation, and the country that is being attacked so viciously needs to be at the table to make the final deal. The second thing the president promised and delivered upon, Brian, is that this meeting would set up the framework for the next meeting. And it is not always the case where one meeting leads to another. We've all seen President Trump be one and done. I think in addition to the art of the deal is the art of the details. And I know President Trump is going to get back on Air Force One tonight. He's not going to go to sleep at all the entire ride. We already know that. And he's going to expect everyone around him.
He's going to be kicking his feet up thinking about how Vladimir Putin fucked his ass.
And what the details should be like. And I think he's going to talk to Zelensky again. He's going to talk to the other European leaders again. Look, everything came up Trump in the U.S. today. This was his meeting on U.S. soil with U.S. bombers ahead. Look at the step and repeat behind them. It says pursuing peace. Do you think Vladimir Putin wanted to stand in front of a banner on U.S. soil a foot shorter than the U.S. president in front of words that say pursuing peace? That's the goal here. But that's President Trump's
Brother,
goal.
are you serious?
And the last thing I'll say is Putin, I disagree completely with who said he's got cards to play. He got the first word.
Bro, they're
the
libs
first
now.
Statement. I think today
They're
the most
fucking libs.
important
They're libbed
word
up.
to get
They're
was
libbed
the
up the
last
wazoo.
word.
This
and
is
President
crazy.
Trump was crisp and concise. You know why? Putin treated him like they're friends. Oh, the religious artifacts. Oh, you're looking so healthy and vibrant. Donald Trump was not being his jovial, jaunty self in this press conference. It was not emotional. It was transactional. And I think it's because Putin knows Trump can crush Russia's economy with primary sanctions like he's done before, and these secondary sanctions for countries like India and China who are buying Russian oil. I think it's a huge win
this is
for peace
worse
today and a
than
huge
I
win for our
thought.
president.
Yeah, and when we get details, I'll know.
Okay, this deal, this fake deal that wasn't a deal at all is literally even
Jason,
worse than we previously thought.
Your
If this is the
thoughts about what we know
spin,
so far, they both
the
came
spin
out.
is,
I think that's actually a good
wow,
line that Putin
Donald
had,
Trump
and why they
made
laughed.
Vladimir Putin look short in comparison in front of a banner that says pursuing peace.
No kidding. I think it's a huge win.
Dude, they're trying desperately to spin this around into like a positive, and there's so nothing. There's so much of absolutely nothing, nada, zero, that they're just like, yeah, Trump looked hot on stage. Of Vladimir Putin, I bet he felt bad after he nutted in Trump, you know?
Really got what he wanted from Trump. And if Trump had been irate, he would have called things off. Putin has gotten to him. I think that's very clear.
Yeah, I mean, I think that just thinking back to the beginning of this, Putin walking off the plane to a round of applause from the President of the United States, Trump was a very eager participant in resetting this relationship, the personal relationship between the two of them.
I'm gonna keep a buck
if there's
50.
anything
Like
that
the
comes
whole
out of this,
second
it's
meeting will
that.
take place in Moscow. Second meeting will take place in Russia is a crazy statement. And then And of course, like Trump is on the spot there, but it's wild that his response is, oh, they would get mad at me, Vladdy Poo. They would get mad at me if I were to do it, Vladdy Poo. We basically have zero information but some clues. No ceasefire announced. Putin alluded to a great meeting and warned the EU and Ukrainians not to torpedo whatever proposal it is he put forward to Trump, which he would actually agree to. Clearly, this didn't mean EU/Ukraine red lines, and that's why Trump kept saying he needed to call them after the meeting to see that it is potentially acceptable. The second meeting is supposed to have Zelensky. You understand? That shit ain't happening in fucking Moscow if Zelensky is showing up. Yeah, Trump told Brett Baer before the meeting, I won't be happy if I walk away without some form of ceasefire.
Of this meeting
Well,
in
now
Alaska
we know
to walk
that was an
away
abject failure.
with a ceasefire?
So when you talk about deals, it's all I do my whole life. I do deals. You never know. You don't like to have too many expectations. You want it because you have to weave and bob, and you don't know what's going to happen. But we're going to go and find out. I'd like to see a ceasefire. I wouldn't be thrilled if I didn't get it, but everyone says you're not going to get the ceasefire. It'll take place on the second meeting. The second meeting is going to be but I'm not going to be happy with that. So we'll see what happens. I'm going to be, I won't be happy if I walk away without some form of a ceasefire. Now, I say this, and I've said it from the beginning, this is really setting the table today. We're going to have another meeting if things work out, which will be very soon. Or we're not going to have any more meetings at all, maybe ever.
So what are your expectations? I mean, is the goal of the...
Should I have turkey at the table? Yeah, true. I mean, I think Trump's top envoy, Steve Witkoff, who was in the 3-on-3 meeting, entered the press conference room, took a seat, and then abruptly left minutes later. Bro saw his ex and immediately fumble everything. He is just like me. Bro went from no ceasefire means I'm going to be upset to no ceasefire and the second meeting will be in Moscow, which means, again, whatever the fuck Russia wants, I guess. Yeah, Brett Baer said that a Putin interview was potentially in the works, but it's not happening after the rescheduled press conference, probably because like Putin already nutted too much inside of Trump, so he's like, I can't nut anymore, I'm out. And I guess Sagar's assessment here is the most hopeful, most optimistic one, but I don't think so, especially because who knows what those red lines are going to look like. Like, this also implies that Trump gives a fuck about red lines that EU could have set here or red lines that Ukraine could have set here. When has Donald Trump ever given a shit about whatever red lines the European Union has wanted, whatever demands that the EU has made? Like, the idea that Donald Trump is just not revealing the outcome of this ceasefire because he's like waiting to call European leaders to get permission sounds insane. We didn't get there. U.S. President Donald Trump says no deal, but progress made after Ukraine talks with Vladimir Putin. Trump says many points were agreed with Putin, but a few remain, including one he describes as significant. Putin calls out European nations out to torpedo progress as he talks with Trump were thorough and constructive. I believe we had a very productive meeting. There were many points that we agreed on. I will call it NATO in a little while, and I will, of course, call President Zelensky and tell him about today's meeting. This, by the way, is why it was odd to agree to EU-Ukrainian red lines in the first place. The U.S. president should only consider his own red lines ahead of a major diplomatic summit. Yeah, I don't think the Trump administration gives a fuck about whatever the EU and Ukrainian red lines are. What are we talking about? It so far looks like a spectacular failure. One that is actually unique. Because it's like, you're used to Trump dominating global leaders, right? You're used to him bitching them out, having them come to the White House, sitting there as he like chirps on endlessly about, I don't know, transgender athletes or something, right? This was Putin doing that to him. And you just saw it. Like, and for a guy who cares so much about the aesthetics of domination, compare Donald Trump's meetings with like Keir Starmer, Macron, Merz, and any number of different world leaders versus the meeting that he just had and the press conference that he just gave with Vladimir Putin. He was the one in the bitch seat. And this is something that he cares about. He cares about not looking like he's being dominated. It's maybe the only thing he cares about. I feel like it's pretty crazy that he was like even smiling through the process when it's like very obvious that the deal didn't go anywhere.